First, you must know this. Donald Trump is a great wizard, and he has much of the country under his spell. Our instincts are to follow confident, powerful people. So his supporters' instincts are not necessarily misplaced by following the cult of such a powerful magician. Sorry. For this video, I aim to be as unbiased as possible. Trump supporters will be like, how can you be unbiased when the video is about the cult of Maga? Well, it's because technically Maga is a cult. Its leader correctly said that he could shoot a man on Fifth Avenue and he wouldn't lose any supporters. The cult of Maga is where Trump draws his power, and he has a lot of power. Now, for the record, I do not have a side. I feel both January 6th and the vaccine mandates were both unforgivable sins. So both the Republican and the Democratic Party fell to depths that I just didn't even know what was possible in 2020. So if this were an American TV show, I wouldn't have brought either of these plot twists. I'd just be like, absolutely not. There's no way one party is going to try to stop an election from being certified, and the other party is going to tell me that there's no such thing as natural immunity. So both of those two sins should have been the beginning of the end of party politics, in my opinion, but we seem to be unable to stand up for ourselves as a people. So here we are. Both parties hold as much power today as they did in 2019. And I understand that most of my viewers are either okay with January 6th or okay with the vaccine mandates. Just remember how much people can memory hole things that are just inconvenient to them. Convenient, huh? So I just want to say, there was a Salem, Massachusetts after the witch trials. The town didn't just dissolve. So you have to imagine living the rest of your life looking at your musty ass neighbors like, did you just hang my cousin for witchcraft and now you're just planting corn out here? Whatever. But you know what? Salem is a nice town now, so let's move on. On this channel, we rate cults and we talk shit, and I wouldn't be doing either, honestly, if I didn't rate the cult of Maga, which may take power back in January. This video is about loyal Trump MAGA followers and the organization. It is not about the Christian nationalist cults in Trump's orbit, nor is it about the multi-level marketing schemes that he cooked up in the past. Fascinating stuff. The Trump umbrella covers a lot of things going on in the movement, but we can't go into all of them here. We have to be specific. I have a certain amount of time. Now, cult is a derogatory term for a group or sect that espouses new or repackaged ideas. It exerts a high amount of influence over its followers, and they usually are led by a central figurehead. These are also known as high demand groups or high control groups. Now, cults used to be called new religious movements like back in the day, but they can be religious, they can be political, physical, business, philosophical. There is usually an underlying ideology, but there are also cults of personality that center around a charismatic person. Trump is a very charismatic person, let's be honest. Now, that is not to say that all Trump voters are in the MAGA cult. Some are in other cults, and some are just tired of politics as usual, and they want an outsider. They are not stupid necessarily, nor are they making the wrong decisions based on where they are in life right now. Plenty of people will agree with everything I say in this video, and they will go and vote for him next week. They may do this because they are less viscerally repulsed by Donald Trump than by his opponent, or what his opponent represents, I should say. And they might do it for the economy. Cash money, that's what they care about. I do have a video coming out about the woke mind virus soon. I wanted to drop them both at the same time, but I am not actually AI. No matter what my comment section says, I'm not AI, and I can't do a 45-minute fully researched video in a matter of minutes. It takes me weeks to do these. Anyway, we know that cult and culture overlap. Both come from the Latin word colere, which means to cultivate, like you would cultivate a garden, to tend. And if you don't tend a garden, weeds just grow. So you kind of have to, but not every culture is a cult. It's like cancer comes from normal cells that metastasize. So we've discussed this ad nauseum on this channel. Kind of got to grade these things on a scale. So check out Steve Hassan's YouTube page. It's called The Influence Continuum, and you can learn more about that. Hassan wrote The Cult of Trump, this book. Oh, this book right here. I got it right here. Ha, ha, ha. He used to be a follower of the Moonies, and he's been talking to many, many cult experts on this subject. So some people watching will classify MAGA as a cult and some as a subculture. That's fine. It's a free country. I really don't care that much. This video is to explore the MAGA cult or MAGA culture for those of you who don't think it is a cult. Then, of course, we rate MAGA to see where it stacks up against other cults, because that's what we do here. So first and foremost, I have to talk to you about the conditions that brought us to MAGA, because it didn't come out of nowhere. In 2016, 2015, 2016, a lot was going on. We can't just dismiss the MAGA people offhand. Let's try to see things from their perspective. In 2015, when Trump announced his campaign, people were frustrated with the status quo and they wanted a change. We were in the full throes of social media and its consequences. So people say, Barack Obama made the country racist, but I think Obama just happened to be president during the rise of social media. Social media feeds on tribalism and hate. So 2015, the country is in 2015, way back when the Black Lives Matter protests were gripping the cities. The mid-2010s were actually pretty chaotic, and we don't appreciate that because they have gotten even more chaotic. But coming from a time of unity and hope to domestic terrorist incidents in 2016 is actually pretty chaotic. There's just general chaos. There's mass shootings. There was race riots. There's men decided they could be women and vice versa. So to regular people who drive a pickup truck and spend their weekends mowing their lawns, like this stuff was really worrying. And it happened so fast. So by 2015 already, we had 20 years of Fox News and CNN, which is 24-hour news coverage. Fox, of course, has a conservative spin. And our news environment is just constantly pushing this fear and outrage directly into our heads. And I call this non-consensual information because you'll go into a doctor's office or the mechanic's office and the 24-hour news is on. You just can't get away from it. So they push it in your head. They force it on you. And by 2015, the rift between red and blue was already massive. So it was libs versus conservatives. Trump did not invent this. You remember in 2000, the election, Bush versus Gore, that went to the Supreme Court. The country was already greatly divided before Trump. All that Trump did was unite the tribes of the right under a central figure. And there are people who have Trump derangement syndrome, as they call it. So basically people who think that Trump is uniquely dangerous. And a lot of them are projecting the right's worst values on Donald Trump. And those were the right's values before 2015. Perhaps they've metastasized under Trump, but he didn't invent them. Also in 2015, remember the incumbent president was Barack Hussein Obama, who had previously united the tribes of the left under him in 2008. And Trump, of course, spearheaded that birther movement. You remember that, which questioned Obama's place of birth. Obama being our first non-white president, that was kind of shady. So he's mixed, and birthers will say, oh, it's not a question of race, it's his birth certificate. Where was he born? But that's pretty convenient to go after our first non-white president like that. And Trump did that. Remember, also, Trump was not the only populist candidate who highlighted our frustrations in 2016. We remember Bernie Sanders ran a nearly successful campaign with things like Medicare for all, tax the billionaires, etc. So there was a guy on the left that was speaking to the common people's concerns as well. Another note that a lot of the young kids don't remember is that in 2008, it's 2008, it's not 2008. In 2008, Barack Obama was sent in with a mandate to punish the bankers responsible for defrauding the American people. And he did not do that. We also under him saw the rise of this technocratic class that had as much money as the oil barons, but they weren't sharing either. And Bernie had promised to fight these economic injustices. But Bernie lost to Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary. We're not going to go into it here. We're not going to rehash it. And then Hillary Clinton went on to lose to Donald Trump. It's just the order of events. Not going into any more detail. But Clinton faced a lot of backlash for her Goldman Sachs speeches. That was a huge point of contention. And you remember this iconic moment where Donald Trump got up and he said, I give all of these people money. And you know what? When I call, they pick up the phone. He was basically calling the politicians out for serving the donor class. And Donald Trump was so rich that the implication was that he wouldn't do that. He doesn't need the money. Now, a lot of people were misogynist and they didn't like Hillary Clinton because she was a woman, but a lot of them just didn't like the fact that she was establishment. Keep in mind, the order of presidents would have been Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Clinton. Okay. Bernie ended up endorsing Hillary and most of his followers voted for her, but he did not run a cult, so he couldn't force them to vote for her. Even psychologically, he couldn't force them to do it. 2016 was just a powder keg, and the people were in the streets demanding change. There was a lot of psychic energy, a lot of frustration. And out of the 2016 election, Bernie versus Hillary, Trump versus like 20 people, Trump stood victorious. So the important points of all this, you're like, what was going on in 2015 when MAGA came to power? The important points are Trump did not come out of a vacuum. The country was divided already, deeply divided between conservatives and progressives. Social media was preying on the tribalism of people. The cities were unstable due to BLM protests. And of course, all the drugs, lots of drugs going on there. The people wanted a populist candidate, and the Democratic Party had failed to punish the bankers who defrauded the American people. And they even took money from those bankers. So Trump was able to successfully run as an outsider populist, even though he was a well-connected billionaire. The MAGA movement put him in the White House. Okay, so 2016, he's elected, yada, yada, yada. 2016 to 2020, we got COVID, and the mainstream media absolutely vilified Donald Trump, even more so than they had before. So Trump made his mistakes over COVID. We're not going to go into it, but there were enough mistakes to go around. Everybody was making mistakes. Literally, all of the adults in our lives decided to go back to the 8th grade for 2 years, and the country lost its mind again. The economy tanked. The people were trapped in their homes. There was all this unreleased psychic tension, and they erupted in race riots in 2020. Once again, the cities are in flames just in time for an election. It is chaos. And this time, there's also a disease. So that's great. And social media was just as bad as it was in 2016. Somehow life was more chaotic in 2020 than in 2016. Somehow. Anyway, Democrat Joe Biden was elected in 2020. They had changed the rules to allow mail-in ballots because of COVID. People thought it might be dangerous to go in person and vote. So this was a point of contention. Joe Biden basically won by those mail-in ballots, and Donald Trump said it was a fix, that Democrats had stolen the election. So a Stop the Steal rally was organized at the Capitol. There are many Stop the Steal rallies. The last one was on January 6th. A mob of MAGA supporters stormed the Capitol building in an attempt to stop Vice President Mike Pence from certifying Joe Biden's win. This former MAGA supporter by the name of Pam Hemphill described how she was brainwashed and was convinced to take part in January 6th. She ended up serving 2 months, this little old lady, and she deeply regrets her decision. She has since made it her mission to expose the cult of MAGA. This is her journey, her truth. I'm linking a very good January 6th documentary in the bottom. Don't believe these alternative right-wing facts. Trump supporters pushed their way into that Capitol to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power. It is what happened. It's on video. About 1,000 people were prosecuted, and yes, they had their day in court. Pam Hemphill describes in detail what actually happened versus the right-wing spin on what happened. Unfortunately, I live in 2 different media bubbles. So most people thought that January 6th would be the end of Donald Trump's political career, but it did not happen. Never count Donald Trump out. He's just promising so much, a return to glory, and it's just too attractive. Plus, who are his enemies? His enemies are the globalists, the deep state, the establishment. Well, we know they're not trustworthy. There is a lot of energy for MAGA, especially with young Gen Z male voters who grew up under the assault on rationality that was woke. Woke mind virus coming soon. Wait for that. Now, MAGA under Donald Trump is stronger now than it was in 2016. It is insane. And its enemies only help them. So some important terms for the rest of this video, important terms to note. The glossary. The globalists. Who are the globalists? The globalists are the enemy of MAGA. Just remember that. They may be the enemy of all of us, actually. These are people who want to tear down national borders and open up the world for trade, no tariffs or anything like that, and open up the world for immigration, as well as centralized government from the UN or the WHO. These are the sworn enemies of the United States Constitution and the sworn enemies of MAGA. At least in the MAGA worldview. In the MAGA worldview, this is the case. The deep state is another enemy, and of course, that is also made up of the globalists. And for the sake of this video, globalist is not synonymous with Jewish. Please don't do that. That's kind of this anti-Semitic propaganda that's now going around. It's kind of disgusting. Now, the deep state. The deep state is the internal scaffolding of the unelected bureaucrats that actually run our government. The deep state is in the pockets of the globalists in MAGA's worldview. The Democratic Party is the party of the globalists. They want to ship jobs overseas. They want to import people to work for lower wages so that everybody has lower wages. Basically, the wages of the whole country fall and it's worse off for everybody. They want the United States, by far the greatest nation to ever grace this planet, to bow before the UN and the World Health Organization. More specifically, the small group of woke elites who actually run the UN or the World Health Organization, according to MAGA. So just remember, the global economy, globalism, open borders, these are all evil to MAGA. So you're sitting there like, Maya, I actually lived through COVID, and a lot of that seems true. Okay, fair enough. Good point. You make a good point, but I'm not getting past January 6th, okay? So I see your point, but this is why I can't take a side. Okay, so now that we know what MAGA is, how do they stack up against other cults? That's what you're here for. Now, the information in this video comes from a bunch of sources. I'll probably put them at the bottom. We got interviews with Donald Trump, the man himself, tweets and truth nuggets from Donald Trump, interviews with people who have worked with Trump. This book that I just pointed out, The Cult of Trump by Stephen Hassan, which is a little biased against Trump. To be perfectly honest, a little biased, but also he knows what he's talking about. The book Fear by Bob Woodward. Woodward is a political reporter. He's written on every president for like the past 40 years or so. This book Unhinged by Omarosa. Omarosa is a former Trump employee and also diva, and she basically describes her leaving the cult. Plus the book Too Much by his niece, Mary L. Trump, which describes Donald Trump's upbringing. And the videos from YouTube, videos from Rumble by Maga supporters and former supporters, various articles which I will put on the screen for you. Okay, Rate My Cult rating. Here we go. Remember, a Rate My Cult rating is not the same as a support for the cult. One of my favorite cults ever got a very low rating, and some of the ones that I can't stand get very high ratings. So I'm just saying what I see. First category, charismatic leader. We have Donald John Trump, born in 1946 to Fred Trump and Mary Ann McLeod Trump. So yes, Donald Trump is a McLeod. No, Donald Trump is not the Highlander, but don't tell his followers. His mother, Mary, Donald Trump's mother, Mary, was a Scottish immigrant who spoke English as a second language. She had 5 children, and Donald was the second from the youngest. So now only his sister, Elizabeth, survives. So if Donald Trump is the Highlander, Elizabeth better watch her back. His father, Fred Trump, was a real estate developer who left his son, Donald, a considerable fortune. Donald Trump's wealth was inherited. Donald Trump was his father's favorite child, the chosen successor. But Fred was not affectionate toward Donald from Donald's birth. Donald Trump actually experienced life-affecting childhood trauma early on. Mary Trump, Trump's mother, had a postpartum complication with his younger brother, Robert. She was in and out of the hospital for a year when Trump was only 2.5 years old, and there was no one around to really love him the way a 2.5-year-old needs to be loved. His father, Fred Trump, worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He did not show affection for young Donald or any of his children. Fred's attention was on training Donald's eldest brother, Freddie. Donald learned to act out to get his father's approval. Now, we are not diagnosing Donald Trump, but Mary Trump's description of Donald Trump's childhood overlaps perfectly with Daniel Shaw's description of the traumatic narcissist, a child shamed for being needy when all children are needy, who then grow up to demand that other people pay attention to him. Now, Donald Trump has all the affection he could never get when he was a baby. Donald became a bully. He tormented his younger brother. He tormented younger kids at school, so much so that he had to be sent away to military boarding school. Later, he tortured his older brother, Freddie. And as president, we remember the disgusting things he had to say about people, especially women like Mika Baranski. Fred Trump taught Donald to be a killer, and he favored his aggressive son, letting him get away with incompetence that he would never allow from his other children. Fred Trump was the first member of the Trump cult, and he made Donald Trump's false, larger-than-life persona possible. Now, what is interesting is that Donald Trump had a unique childhood religious experience. During his formative years, his family went to the First Presbyterian Church of Jamaica in Queens, where he attended Sunday school, and he was confirmed in 1959, so about 13 years old. Okay, perfectly normal, nothing strange about that. But Donald's father, Fred, was a follower of Norman Vincent Peale, who was the pioneer in the power of positive thinking. So they would go to Peale's church and listen every Sunday to his sermons. And Peale later went on to perform the wedding of Donald and Ivana, Ivana being his first wife and the mother of his beloved Ivanka, plus these other children, less important children. Who is Norman Vincent Peale, and what did he teach? So Peale wrote this book called The Power of Positive Thinking, which was published in 1952. It's kind of like a proto version of The Secret. So we recognize this message as the law of attraction. Chapter 1, believe in yourself. Look, this advice seems to have worked for Donald Trump, but we need to all agree that people just need to stop believing in themselves. Okay? Can we all agree people need to stop believing in themselves? We discussed this with the Korean versus the American math team. The American math team believed in themselves and they lost horribly. The Korean math team did not believe in themselves and they won. Donald Trump believed in himself and his people stormed the Capitol rather than just admit defeat. So keep that in mind. Let's just set this power of positive thinking aside for a while and adopt pragmatic thinking, at least until this period of chaos is over. Can we do that? Can we all agree? Now, the gist of the power of positive thinking is that you should keep a positive mind, stay optimistic, have faith in God, and know that all things are possible through God. even destroying the Republican Party by not accepting the results of an election. Okay, last time I'm going to mention it. Whatever. See, God here is unbiased. Also, you're supposed to develop a strong sense of self-respect and that you must believe that you receive your power from God. You can see how a belief system like this can be very helpful to the user. Now, currently, Trump identifies as a non-denominational Christian. What's interesting is Paula White gave Trump's invocation at his inauguration in 2017. Who is Paula White? Well, on the surface, she's an evangelical. They're a huge chunk of the right. She, in particular, preaches the prosperity gospel, which says that if you're a good Christian, you'll be rewarded financially. Okay, heresy. All right. She's also part of a more revolutionary branch called the New Apostolic Reformation and neo-charismatic Christianity. Basically, these churches form around these charismatic preachers. You get a bunch of little cults. That's great. They support starting a theocracy. So the term dominion will come up a lot, and that means Christians having dominion over the government. You see that Paula White evokes supernatural powers in her prayers. I love a good Christian prayer. We've been over this on this channel. I don't want to go into it right now, but I love a full-hearted Christian prayer that evokes the Holy Spirit and the power of God, the wrath of Jesus, and the blood of Christ. Now, Omarosa alleges that White blocked her appointment as the director of the Office of Public Liaison because Omarosa is Baptist. Omarosa is actually a Baptist minister. Okay, on an unrelated note, the community of witches does seem to think that Donald Trump has some sort of protection around him. Maybe it's the power of positive thinking. Maybe it's the evangelicals. It could also be off season at the Ren Fair, and this community of witches just is in between LARPs right now. Nevertheless, their spells don't seem to work on him. Just dropping that right now. Trump was apparently a very difficult child. So, color me shocked. All of the Trumps went to this small New York private school called Q Forest. Now, despite Fred Trump being on the board of directors, his son Donald was too much for the school, and a fellow board member suggested that Fred send him away to learn some discipline. That's why he went to military school. And despite going to this military boarding school, he did not serve in Vietnam due to his bone spurs. One of his later rivals, the late John McCain, famously did serve in Vietnam. We'll just leave that there. But Trump did not. Bone spurs. So Trump went on to attend Fordham University and then was transferred to the Wharton School of Business, where he graduated with an unknown record. Question mark? Question mark? So he famously threatened to sue if the school released his academic records. Remember how he demanded that Obama's records be released, but he won't release his? So this is normal for Donald Trump. This Guardian exchange on this topic is actually hilarious. The reporter gets into a fight with Michael Cohen, who says that Trump will release his records when the reporter releases his. The reporter's like, yeah, sure, I'll release them. I don't care. Then Cohen gets upset and starts telling him off. Now Michael Cohen has a podcast about his time under Trump and explaining how Trump runs a cult. So full circle, full circle. I bring up the school records to illustrate a very important point about Donald Trump's personality. He demands things from other people that he is unwilling to offer himself. In this case, it's Obama's school records. What's important is that Donald Trump will demand absolute loyalty from his followers, but where is he with loyalty to them? Will he even give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes? We remember from his tweets that he does not. Anyway, as Omarosa points out in her book Unhinged, Donald Trump disrespects his close circle. He shows repeated disappointment in Donald Jr., whom he considers a up. He called Omarosa a dog after 15 years of loyal service to him. In fact, she was the one fired from the White House, and they were friends. She was fired, apparently without his knowledge, and her reputation was smeared in the press. But she's the dog for not going along with it? Clearly, it was Trump that was not loyal to her. He talks trash about his staff as soon as they leave the room, including Kellyanne Conway. Let's not even go into the lack of loyalty he has to his wives. That's a different kind of loyalty entirely, which he also lacks. Donald Trump has been married 3 times. His first wife, Ivana Trump, is the mother to his 3 oldest children. His second wife, Marla Maples Trump, is mother to his daughter, Tiffany. And his third and current wife, Melania Trump, is mother to his larger-than-life son, Barron. Something tells me I'm going to have to do a video about Barron in a few years, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. He seems to be the chosen one of these Gen Alpha, Gen Z, far-right young men. So yes, young Gen Z and Gen Alpha have completely rejected woke and are embracing Donald Trump. I think Barron will be better off than Trump is, at least mentally, because Melania is legendary for being such a loving and devoted mother. So that's good. That's good. Donald Trump has some very interesting personal beliefs that seem to have worked out well for him. He doesn't drink or smoke, but it is rumored that he does take stimulants. He doesn't exercise except golf because he believes the body has only so many heartbeats. And if we waste them exercising, we don't get any more at the end. They're not like tacked on at the end. He attributes his good health to genetics. He eats an extraordinary amount of McDonald's and other childish foods. So here in fear, Bannon notes being called to a business lunch and being served hot dogs and hamburgers. So let's just admit that hot dogs and hamburgers really do hit sometimes, but it is also an indicator of a picky eater as a child, which he's a child picky eater adult, which is fine. Hot dogs and hamburgers are not all that Trump eats, though. He famously prefers his steaks well done. So we can't steak shame in today's society. It's impolite to each his own. But I will go vegan before I order a steak well done. And that says a lot because I like steak. He also covers his steak in ketchup rather than get it pink, which is actually nature's ketchup, but whatever. He has to add ketchup. And at Mar-a-Lago, he orders the meatloaf. But it's not just any meatloaf. It's his mother's recipe meatloaf. And that is the sweetest, most rosebud eating habit I have ever heard in my entire life. Now, prior to the presidential run, Donald Trump got decades of free publicity from the tabloid press and then from NBC's Apprentice and their entire production and marketing budget. This Trump figure, this persona from the 2000s, comes from an image that the Apprentice producers crafted. Now, according to this article, the Apprentice producers were shocked by the state of Trump Tower when they initially walked in. It looked like it hadn't been updated in 20 years. The furniture was chipped. The carpet smelled musty. So the point of The Apprentice was that these Ivy League graduates were competing for a job at the Trump organization. So the producers of The Apprentice had to make the Trump organization look appealing, which they did through movie magic, which includes set decorators. Oh, great job, guys. So this fake it till you make it vibes coming off Trump in the 2000s were extraordinary. Why didn't we hear from Trump in the 90s very much? Because he had a series of disastrous business deals and he wasn't king of the world anymore. Here's one interesting interview from Richard Branson. Now, Branson basically says he had lunch with Donald Trump, and this was during Donald Trump's low period. So Trump stewed the whole lunch because he had gone to 5 different people and asked them for help. They refused him, and Trump vowed to get revenge on them. So rather than self-reflect and see what he had done to make himself seem like a bad investment, Trump directed his rage outwards towards these 5 men. The moral of the story here is you don't take a meeting with Donald Trump when he's broke, or maybe ever. But NBC and Mark Burnett made Trump king of the world again with the hit show The Apprentice. They thought it was a character and would get ratings, which it did. So cut to 2016, and this man wins the closest thing there is to king of the world, which is president of the United States. So one last thing to note. Donald Trump's transition to president in 2016 was a complete mess. Omarosa says that in 2016, Trump did want to win, but his transition team doesn't show that. Initially, Chris Christie was going to handle the transition because he's somewhat confident, but Christie and Jared were enemies prior to this because Christie prosecuted Jared's father. It's like, what in the dynasty plot do I have to deal with here? It's like Dynasty with worse hair. Anyway, Christie's out, so who's handling the transition? Well, no one apparently. See, some people, they think Jesus take the wheel is a literal phrase. No, Jesus will not take the wheel. One thing to note, Trump likes to pin his underlings against each other and have them compete for his approval. This isn't uncommon in a cult, by the way. Hitler is famous for this practice. Other cult leaders, too, will pit their followers against each other and have them fight. Nature Boy did that. It's common. The ones who did not have to compete were Ivanka and Jared, and they pretty much got free reign over the campaign and the Oval Office. So Ivanka at that time was his favorite, and Barron may be in competition for that now. Trump mentioned Barron many times on the Joe Rogan podcast. Trump was just on the Joe Rogan podcast, 3 hours. Now, the trait about Trump that strikes me the most is his Machiavellian ruthlessness. Trump hits below the belt. They see this recent McDonald's stunt where he did a photo op at McDonald's to make fun of Kamala Harris for supposedly lying on her resume. It's not particularly witty. It's just that few other politicians will actually stoop that low. Remember when Michelle Obama said, "When they go low, we go high"? Beautiful moment. But for something like this, she'd actually have to contract SpaceX to go as high as Trump goes low. Remember, after the Access Hollywood tape was released, that scandal, Trump brought all of Bill Clinton's accusers to the presidential debate to confront Hillary. So this is how he plays. He plays dirty. He will wrestle with you in that mud. Trump does not self-reflect. We remember his complete lack of self-reflection following the first assassination attempt. I don't even know if he's capable of that. If someone attacks Trump, he doesn't think, maybe they have a point. Maybe I should work on myself. No, if someone attacks Trump, he attacks back. In fact, he considers not attacking back to be a sign of weakness. Omarosa actually recounts in her book a scene from The Apprentice where she criticized her opponents. And this is like supposed to be a working relationship, so you can criticize people. And they still said that they liked her. But Trump thought that that was weakness. He said he would never say he liked someone who had criticized him. Keep in mind, he's already 60 years old at this point. He's kind of old to be thinking this. So in a way, the simplicity of Donald Trump is to be admired. This person injured me and I will injure them back. He doesn't think, what did I do to deserve it? No, he just acts. The simplicity with which he approaches relationships is also admirable. He has no loyalty to his wives, trading Ivana for Marlon Maples. That Stormy Daniels affair seems to be very lame and unromantic. Trump wanted to have sex with Stormy Daniels and he did. He didn't think about his wife or his new baby, didn't think about STIs. Nothing, no impulse control whatsoever, just completely instinctual. So Trump's narcissism is famous. This New York Times article about The Apprentice describes how the producers went into his office, and they described his office as shabby, by the way. And all he had were pictures on his desk and articles about himself. Who keeps just pictures on their desk of themselves and articles about themselves? No computer, nothing, not an iPad? Come on. Anyway, despite all of these flaws, Donald Trump is the hero to a massive segment of people. He spoke to them when the coastal elites had written them off and even called them deplorable. Have you seen a Trump rally? He goes on for hours. He tells stories. He jumps from one topic to the next. He repeats these catchphrases to get the most applause. Do you remember when we compared him to Clever Hans, that horse that was supposedly able to count but couldn't really count, but he could react to his trainer counting? That is Trump. Trump reacts to what his audience wants to hear, and he puts these people under a spell, but it's themselves putting themselves under a spell. It's like them seeing in him what they want. It's actually very beautiful. Look, Donald Trump is not the cult leader I would choose, but he is not speaking to me. It's hard to see why people follow these certain cult leaders you wouldn't follow, and the cult leaders you would follow, others can't see the appeal in them. But you can tell the power of the cult leader from how the followers react, not how you would react. It's like if a celestial body, it looks really small, but all these moons and asteroids get stuck in its orbit. It must be very dense to have such gravity, right? Such as Donald Trump. Full points. Donald Trump gets full points for charismatic leader. Look at the people in his orbit. He has bent the world to his will. His followers have proof that he is a special person touched by God. Even the witches say so. Okay. Full points. Don't at me in the comments. He deserves it. Next up, the Maga doctrine. Make America great again. What is Maga? Reagan first coined the term in the 1980s, but after Romney lost in 2012 to Obama's reelection, Trump trademarked the term. The movement officially began when Trump went down that escalator, do you remember? On June 16th of 2015. The MAGA movement propelled Trump to win the Republican presidential nomination, and after that, the Republican Party establishment joined MAGA. So he kind of took it over. The core MAGA people are working class Americans who want to go back to a time when America was dominating and it was unapologetic. They believe in nationalism, meaning America comes first, okay? Isolationism, meaning America should not police the world, although military spending only increased under Trump. We're not going to go into it. And protectionism, meaning that American goods should get priority and foreign goods should be taxed heavily. The tariffs. Here is a good point from Fear by Bob Woodward. So Bannon is talking to Trump and he tells him the fundamental difference between the establishment and MAGA. Trump doesn't know. He needs to be told, which, whatever. Bannon is clutch for this because Steve Bannon used to make movies, and movies are the dreams of our nation. They are collective consciousness or collective unconscious, whatever. Bannon gets themes is what I'm saying. This world works in themes and emotions, and then our intellect explains it. Did videos on that too. Check those out. MAGA is about reclaiming glory and being strong again. The elitist class wants people to accept managed decline. So of course, MAGA is popular. People don't want to go softly into that good night. It's natural for you to want to fight to survive and for your people to survive. So remember, since 2000, the working class in the USA has lost many, many people to opioids. First it was oxy, then heroin, fentanyl. The life expectancy was already going down prior to COVID. And it was going down from what Chris Hedges describes as deaths of despair. This was addiction, poverty, suicide. People had been counting America out and betting on her decline. Trump came in and said, no, we don't do that. In fact, we're going to be better than ever. And people loved it. They ate it right up. He was actually promising hope. A lot of us can't understand it, or a lot of people on the left can't understand it, but that's what he was doing. Did Trump ever have any power to make America great again? Well, just define great, because obviously it's a campaign promise that is so grand, I don't know if we could ever fulfill it. He promised to stop immigration. So according to Maga, it was the immigrants that were coming in and they were taking jobs and they were driving down wages. And Trump promised to stop that. He promised to build a wall. They also brought with them drugs and crime, which hurt Americans, particularly fentanyl. Some immigration is okay. Eastern European models coming in, that's great. Low wage, low skilled workers, that's bad. The globalists are the one importing these harmful immigrants, by the way. This touches on the Great Replacement theory that globalists import non-white people to slowly replace the white population in America. I haven't heard Trump espouse that theory directly, but there is definitely an overlap. It's kind of a wink, wink that Trump will stop the Great Replacement. There's also a Great Replacement theory among Black people in the Black community that if they continue to import migrants, Black people will no longer be the largest minority, and I don't think we are, and they will lose political power. There's some truth to this. I've heard Trump speak about this. How else did Trump actually make America great? Well, he favored protectionist policies like tariffs. He goes on about tariffs all the time. And that is to encourage domestic production and discourage importing cheap Chinese or other foreign goods. So great. What is wrong with that, actually? Well, we have a service economy now, not a manufacturing economy. And most economists don't actually agree that we need to lower these trade deficits. Trump and Peter Navarro, his go-to for this, they think otherwise. So I personally am not an economist, but it does seem that if we were to bring manufacturing back, Americans are a ways away from being able to work in these factories, unfortunately. We see in this documentary, American Factory, that I talk about a lot, and we also see in Springfield, where the factory boss prefers Haitian workers because they work better and they don't do drugs. Still, back when we had all this manufacturing, we didn't have as many opium deaths. So it is what it is. So maybe Trump can actually bring America back to its glory by bringing manufacturing back. But keep in mind, Biden did a lot of that. So if it happens in a second Trump term, remember, Biden laid the groundwork for that. But Machiavellian Trump will absolutely take credit for his predecessor's accomplishments. He did it in his first term. He'll do it again. They all do it. They all do it. Come on. Also included in the Maga doctrine is a return to traditional gender norms. Trump promises that if he's elected, your daughters will not have to compete against males in women's sports. This is a layup, okay? Most people don't want their daughters competing with men. And all Donald Trump has to say is that he'll do something about it. It's an unforced error by the far left of the Democratic Party. Joe Rogan famously said that Caitlyn Jenner got Donald Trump elected in 2016, and he is right. Implied in Make America Great Again is to reject gender ideology, which is a new phenomenon. However, Trump didn't come out of the gate with this. He is responding to his opponent's push to accept gender ideology. Did you see the military campaign ad from Stanley Kubrick's daughter? And it basically contrasts the old style military, which is Vietnam era. I don't know why we're going back to that. It was a horrific era. Anyway, with the modern day gender bending military. Also, Fox News' Brett Baier asked Kamala Harris if she would give sex transition surgeries to illegal immigrant prisoners. And I'm thinking, what even in the woke mad libs is that question? Obama didn't have to deal with this in 2008. JFK knew what a woman was. Let's be real here. Let's not be goofy. And we see here Riley Gaines and others laying hands on Donald Trump. And Riley Gaines is famous for speaking out against male swimmer Leah Thomas, who she competed against. And Riley Gaines was also later physically attacked by a mob of unhinged gender activists. In any other age, everyone supports Riley. But now in 2024, that's brave. Layup. Now, remember that MAGA also represents most of the traditionally conservative values in America. Make America great again. Conserve what we have. They're largely Christian. Trump has his own Bible made in China. You can buy that Bible. Under the MAGA tent, but not necessarily in the cult, are the evangelicals. So you can watch CBN and see how they root for Trump. Famous Catholic priest and exorcist Father Ripperberger has a prayer to the Virgin Mother for this election. And Trump gave the religious right their ultimate ultimate victory. He overturned Roe v. Wade, which set abortion back to the states to decide. That was a huge gift. Remember, Catholics think American soil is awash in the blood of babies. I think that's ridiculous because babies only have a tiny amount of blood. At best, the American soil is damp with the blood of babies. The religious right are willing to accept Trump as sort of a Cyrus type figure, not a believer, but he helps believers. He's part of their story. So abortion is a huge victory, and it's not central to all MAGA people, but it's something that his Christian followers want. So it's a major selling point. Imagine if you thought babies were being murdered. Just imagine that. Would you care that the guy fighting that ordered a mob to storm the Capitol? No, you wouldn't care. Of course you're not going to care. So just try to think of it from their perspective. This overlaps with the fear of the declining population, especially that fear coming from the right. They don't want an immigrant population. They want natives to have more children like they did after World War II and the Great Baby Boom when America was great. The declining birth rate that overlaps with the Great Replacement theory, with feminism, evil feminism, and of course abortion. Make America great again with more Americans. This isn't just a white American phenomenon, by the way. Many educated Black people see the Black abortion rate, it's the highest of any race. And for whatever reason that is, the numbers simply don't lie. That's a whole other video, but I've met plenty of respectable Black people who low-key believe that Black people are being targeted for abortion because of a hidden eugenics conspiracy. Another video entirely, but that's a big thing. What's crazy about the MAGA brand is that it actually brings the races together. I know you're like, but I heard Trump was a racist. He's one of the biggest racists out there. Didn't the federal government sue Donald Trump for racist practices for not renting to Black people? Yeah, 40-some years ago. You should memory hold that like you've memory hold everything else. Omarosa called him a racist. He says racist things. Okay, that may all be true. But the mythology of MAGA is that they don't see skin color. To them, the woke is obsessed over skin color. This woke anti-racism makes skin color the primary defining characteristic about you. But MAGA believes that you should be judged on merit and we should be free to earn as much as our talents and hard work allow. We don't owe anything to our fellow skin color people or race. Fellow skin color people, that's called race, girl. Whatever. Trump had a rally in the Bronx a few months ago, and it was really interesting because it brought out of a lot of ethnicities for him. We see Blacks for Trump are for him. We see Latinos for Trump. We see the mayor of MAGAville with Amber Rose. We see Kanye taking meetings with him. We see Trump with Ben Carson and Clarence Thomas. So what's that phrase? That not all Trump voters are racist, but all racists are Trump voters. But you will see MAGA followers making convincing arguments that it is really the Democrats that are racist. So now that racist is the worst thing that you can be, worse than being a murderer even, it's interesting that MAGA can somehow claim the moral victory here. I blame the blue hairs for this. MAGA stands for free speech as well. Trump has the explicit backing of Elon Musk, who bought Twitter and turned it into X. Do you remember the Twitter files? This story kind of passed under a lot of people's radar, but it's when members of government conspired with employees at Twitter to suppress damaging information about the Democratic Party. We also remember that during COVID, the tech elites conspired. They conspired to suppress unpopular but true talking points like the lab leak theory and natural immunity. So prior to that even, Twitter had kicked Trump off for what he had done on January 6th for him inciting violence. Keep in mind that there is also a libertarian wing of MAGA, and they think suppression of free speech is the worst thing you can do. MAGA supporters also support the Second Amendment and the right to own guns, even if those guns are used to shoot at Donald Trump. Guns don't kill presidents, patsies kill presidents. MAGA also supports police, except the police at the Capitol on January 6th. MAGA's position is as the anti-woke, which means they support law and order. The woke are against the police, so MAGA are for the police. MAGA has taken over the red. They have the red now. The woke scream defund the police. MAGA screams fund the police. The woke scream Black Lives Matter. MAGA screams all lives matter. The woke kneels for the national anthem. MAGA puts their hand over their hearts. That leads me back to the nationalism. MAGA is pro-America, even if it hates our institutions, if it hates our art, and if it hates our ruling class. Still pro-America. The woke will tear down these statues in our history, and MAGA will raise them back up and take pride in our history. So the MAGA doctrine is solid. No one wants to rule over ashes. We want to believe that our best years are ahead of us. Both sides right now are claiming to be the defenders of the U.S. Constitution and the people. I'm not saying who is closest to reality. That's not what this video is about. The doctrine, which promises the best things, is very appealing. MAGA is very appealing. So full credit for doctrine. MAGA seems to be doing great. Next up, we've got practices and rituals. Let's be honest here. MAGA is having a good time. They're having a way better time than left. They got stuff to do. They've got events. Trump goes to multiple rallies every week, sometimes multiple rallies a day. Does he pay for the police service at these rallies? No, or he did it in 2020. But he's so popular that he can actually gather people in a field and they will come. None of his followers care about his outstanding debts. It's just too inconvenient. Forget about it. These are parties. Whole towns show up. You can put on your best Trump gear. You can buy some new Trump gear. They've got music. They've got celebrities. And I know a good political rally because Bernie used to have good political rallies and they were a lot of fun. They were a good time. It kind of felt like you were part of something greater than yourself. And that's just a warm, fuzzy feeling. And Trump rallies must be very exciting, especially since July 13th. Do you remember that? Do you remember that someone tried to kill Donald Trump on July 13th and it was just gone by the next news cycle? And a man died. So these rallies have this element of danger to them. In 2020, when COVID prevented a lot of large rallies, Trump supporters got their cars together and they had Trump rides. They even had a boat parade. One of those boat parades did not end out so well, but still, they're still on a boat. The point is that it's fun. People go out and they see each other in real life. Nobody is forced to do any of these. They're not forced to go through the trouble of taking part in this tribe bonding ritual. They do it because they want to. And there's a lot of hope at these rallies because people believe in something that means a lot to them. The energy is actually positive. Will the results be positive? Not for me to say. And on social media, people can live in MAGA land. They share memes and information. And I have to point out QAnon, which seriously overlapped with MAGA. And it was this fun little cult that people had going for a while. Q was supposed to be the secret government agent, and he was leaking information called Q drops to followers. He was against the deep state, although he was an insider to the deep state. And he supported Donald Trump because Donald Trump is going to save America. And Q drops were like a scavenger hunt. And you have no idea how boring most people's lives are compared to the TV we're watching and the movies we're watching. So for the average person to have access to this scavenger hunt with all of their friends and they're going to save America, of course you're going to take the chance to take it. It sounds like a good time. But all of MAGA was not Q, but all of Q was MAGA. So we're not going to go into Q here. I just love that little thing. MAGA followers make friends with other MAGA followers. It's like going to church. Remember, everyone around you is fighting the same fight. So it's a friendly environment. There's just nothing like the movement that Trump has built. I'm kind of jealous I'm not in it. He's like the Beatles and Jesus combined to these people. And he proves it again and again. They even bought the Trump trading card NFTs. Full points for practices and rituals. Full points for practices and rituals. And no, I will not be part of it, but I just see them having a good time. It's like a party, that you wouldn't have a good time at, but you go past and you're like, oh my God, all of these people are having a good time. And you're just like, well, that's nice. And they start lighting off fireworks and you're like, this is not nice. In the alley at 2:00 in the morning, whatever. Full points, practices and rituals. Next up, we have a quality of the followers. Quality of the followers. I wish I could give this category more points. The people going all in for Donald Trump are some of the most powerful people on the planet. I can't list them all. I just don't have time for it. That would be its own video, but I will name a few. And keep in mind, there are levels to a cult. So you have your inner circle that's directly around the cult leader. They're around the cult leader. I'll display this in chapstick form. And then you have your periphery, which is the other chapstick. Trump's inner circle is solid. And when he alienates someone in the inner circle, he swiftly replaces them. And I'm saying solid for Donald Trump, not necessarily for the nation. The Trump children. Trump had the good sense to make his most loyal followers. Trump prizes loyalty above all else. And who is the most loyal? Well, family. Usually it's family. Sometimes family will stab you in the back, but unless they're psychopaths, it kind of pains them to do it. So it's a good bet family. Trump has 5 children, all loyal. Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, and Barron. And we saw the oldest on the campaign in 2016. And some were more effective than others. Ivanka is clearly the star, but now Barron is coming of age and he may rival her. Of course, it's not the same sibling rivalry between brother and sister as it is brother and brother. Plus, it's unclear if Ivanka is even going to be returning for this season, while Barron will have a starring role. Still, Trump's power is only growing as his children get older and more popular. We even saw his granddaughter speak at the Republican National Convention. She's a lovely young woman. You can't doubt that. She's very articulate. She's good looking. She's well put together. So his power extends over 3 generations already. Children are an asset, especially if you don't have to do the dirty work of changing diapers and giving nightly baths. Now that investment is paying off for him. I see people saying that children are a liability, like a designer pet in the modern world. That is just wrong. Your pet will not continue your legacy. Your children are an extension of yourself. And if you don't screw them up, they will be your best friends when you're elderly and running for president. The more you know. Now, Melania. Melania makes Cruella de Vil look like Mary Poppins, and I am here for it. I love it. Imagine being married to Donald Trump and staying with him after Stormy Daniels. They need to remix Stand By Your Man because that is some old school behavior. I love her. I won't hear a negative thing about Melania. I just won't. The devil may wear Prada, but it's off the rack. Melania's Prada is custom made and the devil bows before her. It's not the other way around. Remember that time that they made her visit those migrant children camp, and she wore a shirt that said, "I don't really care, do you?" And then she pretended like it was just the first thing on the top of the laundry pile, like she has ever touched a load of laundry in her entire life. Omarosa says she did not do that out of spite for the migrant children. She did it out of spite for her husband, who's got a lot of nerve asking her to do anything after the way he has humiliated her. Yes, it was classless, but she also never had to visit the border again, so that's a win. Remember when they tried to shame her for taking those nude pictures as a model? Like, so what? I support it. In fact, I want Melania Thinspo. I am tired of this PC body positivity crap. I want to go back to the early 2000s when everything was toxic. It was so toxic. Melania could end the obesity epidemic with her Thinspo. Remember when Michelle Obama tried to help the kids eat better, and she's like, your children are so fat that they will literally bankrupt the nation. Eat a piece of broccoli for the love of God. And fat people were like, Michelle Obama's so uppity. Michelle, these people are beneath you. Melania knows it. Nutrition class in school should just be a nude picture of Melania judging you while you eat. How many people will lose that weight? And me. If you don't know about Thinspo, congratulations on your mental health. You're not better than people. Remember that time when Melania had to decorate the White House for Christmas and it looked like solstice on the Death Star? I loved it. It was so cold and unapproachable. I'm sitting there like, what in the Eastern European tragedy is this? I want more of this, more of this. So that'll be good if Trump wins. We'll get some interesting Christmas decorations. In my opinion, this is just my humble YouTube opinion, Melania has always been too good for Donald, and he didn't realize it until just recently. I'll never forgive him for the way he betrayed Melania, a literal queen, maybe an evil queen, but a queen nonetheless, for the star of Breast Friends 2. Have some self-respect. It just shows his character. It's like passing up Kobe steak tartare for a charred McDonald's burger, which he would do. Steve Bannon is another one. He didn't come onto the Trump campaign trail until after he won the 2016 Republican primary. I don't know how much Steve Bannon is in the cult as a believer, but he is a loyal partner to Maga. Bannon is getting out of federal prison on October 29th. He's been serving a sentence for contempt of the House of Representatives because he refused to testify. Who doesn't have contempt for the House of Representatives? Let's just be honest here. Steve Bannon was MAGA before there was MAGA. His worldview overlaps with Trump's, and Trump may be a convenient champion for his side rather than a cult leader to Steve Bannon personally. Nevertheless, Steve Bannon is a powerful follower. Okay, side note, doesn't Steve Bannon look like he should be in the trenches of the Revolutionary War? Like he's on your side because the British won't have him, but you also won't let him stay in your house. Like, Steve, you get the barn, okay? He's got that 1700s face, you know? Steve looks like he's a friend of Ben Franklin, and you only hang out with him because Ben brings him around, and you kind of take Ben to the side, and you're like, who is this guy even? How do you know him? Is this the guy that left all those bodies in your basement? And then Ben's like, not the time you're thinking of, but yeah, he did. Just a different time. Like, Ben, don't bring this dude around anymore. Anyway. For the conspiracy-minded, we also have Alex Jones, who is a Trump follower. We've gone into Jones ad nauseum on this channel. I've done full hour-long videos on him. He founded InfoWars and provides alternative news. He's been around since the 90s, and he's cracked some very interesting stories. most notably Bohemian Grove, but he's also had some massive failures like Sandy Hook. Jones was instrumental in the Stop the Steal campaign that ended on January 6th, and he was doing a few of those campaigns before January 6th. Moving on to Elon Musk. SpaceX rescued astronauts from the space station when apparently NASA couldn't get it together to do it. So what are we paying all this money for NASA? Whatever. Elon Musk is the wealthiest man in the world. He owns thousands of satellites which orbit the Earth for Starlink, and people are just cool with that apparently. Like, what kind of Bond villain fantasy is that? But okay, fine. He's more powerful than many individual nations. And he is all in for Trump because Team Blue tried to silence dissent in 2020 and even before. But in 2020, it was especially egregious. Elon Musk is currently registering voters in swing states and handing out checks for $1 million to a lucky winner every day. You can't ask for a better follower. Now, I can't go into all the people on Trump's team, on the Maga team right now, but I will drop a few honorable mentions. You got Roger Stone, you got Hope Hicks, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got Laura Loomer, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani is Trump's ride or die. He wagered everything on the 2020 election fraud media campaign and he lost. He was sued for defamation and lost all he had earned over a lifetime. Giuliani is the rickety cricket of the Trump world. He was America's mayor after 9/11, but he has fallen from grace with his association with Donald Trump. Sad, very sad. Then you've got your establishment Republican Party who de facto work for Trump. He was able to absorb them like the blob. The Never Trumpers, they were pushed out of the Republican Party. So now all that's left is MAGA. The Republican Party is Trump's party, and these traditional conservatives, they've only got influence through Donald Trump. And that is a real shame because the debt is currently $35.8 trillion, and we could use some traditional conservatives right now. Okay, all of that. Then you've got your MAGA influencers. They may not be friends with Trump personally, but they are very influential. My favorite is the mayor of MAGAville, Forgiato Blow. He is the most famous Trump rapper that I can think of. He also hosts other Trump rappers like Trump Latinos and Black MAGA. And of course, Gucci Granny. You thought it was bad when your grandma got on Facebook. Now she's here taking over rap battles and winning. Go for her. If you haven't gone down a Forgiato Blow rabbit hole, you really should. You really should. I don't know if he's getting paid by a super PAC. You can't really tell anymore. He might be genuine. Trump Latinos have MAGA neck tattoos, so I'm going to say they're genuine. This seems to be part of their urban outreach branch, and it is entertaining. Half his songs are trash, honestly, but there are some good ones. And you have to go to the Mayor of MAGAville re-upload channel. I don't know why the original channel was basically scrubbed, but many of these songs aren't even available anymore. So it's just sad. I could make a whole video on this, just Trump rap. But yes, MAGA has street game. Note Marjorie Taylor Greene as the awkward video vixen here. I love it. Oh my God. There's a Michael Flynn one too. We're not going to get into it. I wish this were a joke, but the MAGA sphere and the leftist sphere are so far apart that if you're not in MAGA or you're not cyber stalking MAGA, you're just not aware that all of this is going on. Then, of course, you've got your MAGA fans. These are the people who go to the rallies, who download Truth Social for news and information, who buy Trump merch like NFTs. These are the people like Pam Hemphill, who were at the Capitol on January 6th and got caught up in the excitement. Some MAGA followers were at the Capitol and they did not go in. So I see why she was prosecuted. Definitely check out that documentary linked at the bottom. MAGA followers will sacrifice everything for their dear leader. Let's read this passage from an interview in The Guardian with a Trump supporter. He's a so-called ultra MAGA who started by selling the merch. He says Obama introduced him to politics. Then he sold Hillary merch, but that didn't really catch on. He didn't believe in her. Now, not only does he sell Trump merch at his rallies, but he embraces the message and the man fully. He says that Trump has been persecuted like Jesus. And this woman here says that she would have divorced her current husband if he were not MAGA. Now, this is her third husband, so she'll divorce a man. But nevertheless, she's willing to break up her marriage for Donald Trump, a man I'm assuming she doesn't even know. This other woman sells very unique Trump merch nationwide. They have this kind of merch art going. It's kind of cool, I guess. Look, not all MAGA followers are the deplorables that Clinton warned us about, but yeah, of course some are. Deplorables get a vote too, and they don't have to lay down and die because the coastal elites don't like them. The hardcore MAGA followers I know they're simply traditionalists, conservative in their lifestyle, and they see Trump as a man who will bring sanity back to the country. They follow him because he stands against what seeks to destroy their way of life, in their opinion, in their estimation. Now, some MAGA people, of course, are terrible people, of course, but I don't believe you can judge a person solely based on their politics or their religion, and MAGA is politics and religion. For MAGA people, they're in a fight for their survival. So full credit, full points on quality of the followers. I wish I could give more full points on Musk alone. Oh yeah. Plenty of Trump staffers and followers have left his orbit and are now speaking against him. Michael Cohen, Omarosa, General Kelly, General Mattis, Rex Tillerson. All of these people once served Trump, but now they are warning of the kind of man Trump really is, the kind of man that they saw. Unfortunately, it's too late, because just because you hate your baby daddy doesn't mean the baby just disappears. Even your stretch marks don't disappear, girl. Still, they are trying to do the right thing, and also know that all of these powerful people have a lot of hustle in their own right. Trump used them as much as he could, got as much as he could out of them, and now he's openly feuding with many of them, or has insulted many of them. So full credit. Quality of the followers, full credit. I wish I had followers like that. Moving on to our last category, which is brainwashing techniques. Once again, Trump is the beneficiary of other people's work. Trump didn't create the toxic social media environment. He just used it to his advantage. Social media funnels people into ideological camps and then pits those camps against each other. That's how it makes its money. Facebook notoriously did this in 2016, pushing the most controversial topics to the top because hate needs to eat. Hate is always hungry, and Facebook did this to its own people for a few coins. The same goes for Twitter, which Trump ruled over for years until it kicked him off after January 6th. This is how these companies operate. Now Trump has Truth Social, which is a huge moneymaker for him, huge hit for him. It hasn't made the stockholders very much money, but so what? Trump is going to make his money. He might lose it on a foolish business venture, but he's going to take every opportunity to make more. And Truth Social has a streaming service coming out soon. Rumble is half MAGA ads and half ads for tools. And honestly, except for the MAGA ads and the constantly trying to sell you these limited edition coins, Rumble has some really cool ads. Their tools are really interesting. We will be mad as hell when the war is on and Cletus has this dope flashlight lightsaber and we're stuck in the train cars with our lame phone flashlights. If you haven't ventured into Rumble, it's worth a look. I don't see how Truth Social streaming is going to be any different from Rumble, but we will see. Rumble's platform is actually pretty good. Let's be honest, if the tech isn't good enough, then people will not migrate over to Truth Social. But we'll see. Rumble is a good platform. I don't mean the content. Obviously, I don't mean the content. I mean the way it plays, et cetera, what it has available. People live in different worlds. Have you noticed that? People live in different worlds. There's YouTube world and there's Rumble world. And these worlds have different sets of facts. Remember Kellyanne Conway's alternative facts, that comment from 2017? She basically said the quiet part out loud. And it's true. The different camps have different facts. And a lot of those, they don't even cross. According to MAGA, the Democrats are communists and they are looking to have a Soviet-style bureaucracy that is loyal to the party. They already control many of our institutions, and people who are not party loyalists are simply not allowed to work. They're basically blacklisted. The communists control Hollywood, the media, and the universities. And MAGA kind of has evidence for this too, so it's hard to disprove them, unfortunately. And this fear elicits a visceral reaction in many MAGA followers, especially those who have escaped communist countries or read about the history of communism. The fear emotion elicits most action from us. To get up and go, you get up and go when you're afraid. It's in our programming. Now, MAGA thinks that Democrats are communists and their rise to power will bring on the gulags. That's what they think. That's my dog. My dog's loud. Oh, now we got a canvasser at the door. Don't ask me to vote for you. Get away from my door. That's why you get a loud dog. Get away from my door, canvasser. Okay, back to scene. That all of academia had to submit these DEI statements, which is basically proof that all of our educators must be loyal to the party. That didn't allay the fears of MAGA. Loyalty oaths to a particular ideology are traditionally frowned upon. The cities burning in 2020 didn't help allay their fears. Fire, death, sirens. These have the opposite effect. The vaccine mandates of 2021 didn't help allay their fears. That was a conspiracy theory in 2020. And by 2021, they were almost law. The Supreme Court had to strike it down. Why are the Democrats this stupid? I really don't know. The Democrats are either the dumbest group to ever live, or they are actual communists who want to burn the cities and close down the schools. I believe the former. MAGA believes the latter. Fox News is firmly MAGA. Even after its rift with Donald Trump following January 6th, Fox almost had a backbone. This close to having a backbone. 24-hour news is 24-hour brainwashing. Plus OAN and Newsmax, they are both MAGA. Trump's power is so complete that you will see these news stations performing for this audience of one. That audience of one is Donald Trump because he watches the news constantly. He's always on TV. He has total control of these journalists, and he doesn't have to beat them or threaten their families. They do it for a pat on the head. This man is a wizard. MAGA also exiles apostates. Look at how former Trump staff have been treated after leaving office. Trump called Omarosa a dog after she helped him pass that HBCU legislation that he now brags about to get the black vote. He called Rex Tillerson dumb as a rock. That's just disrespectful to a man of Tillerson's standings. He insults Jeff Sessions every chance he gets. We remember what happened to Mike Pence after he disagreed with Trump. Omarosa explains that the worst thing that can happen is to leave Trump world. If you leave or betray the Trump cult, you are labeled crazy and pathetic. Trump did not care that he completely contradicted himself after he tweeted nice things about his departed senior advisor. He changed his tone only after Bannon appeared to go against the grain. It is a pattern the White House repeats often. Lying is second nature to this administration. That's just the man. That was the man before MAGA. So they have a word for Republicans who don't support Trump. They're called rhinos, Republicans in name only. Now, the Republican Party started in the 1850s to combat slavery. It was around before Trump's family even arrived in the United States. And now you can't be a Republican if you don't support Trump. Rhino has been a term since the 1980s, but it has been taken over by MAGA. This kind of reminds me of David Koresh, how he took over the Branch Davidians. The Branch Davidians were a longstanding religion, and people were Branch Davidians long before David Koresh took it over. But these people still ended up following him and dying alongside him because he was their new leader. He took over the organization at its head. I'm about to head off. This is my about to head off motion. The current Republican Party is now a Trump cult. Republicans who have stayed, they're doing it for power, which they get through their proximity to Donald Trump. Trump will and has given them what they want, which is deregulation, tax cut, and abortion, or against abortion. Now, most people simply are not that close to power. The upstate farmer waving the Trump flag is not vacationing at Mar-a-Lago. The families torn apart by MAGA are not just from his inner circle. The Thanksgivings ruined are not just on Martha's Vineyard. Regular working class people are going all in for MAGA, and it's tearing families apart. Embracing Trump often means alienating friends and family, and this is a sacrifice they make for the group. And having made the sacrifice, they're even more committed to Trump. Some people have made public statements, and once you make a public statement, you're more likely to continue on that path. That red hat they wear, that is a public statement. I'm not talking about the secret Trump voter or even the normal Trump voter. Some people are voting for Trump because it's that or Harris, and they prefer Trump. For them, it's really got nothing to do with MAGA. But MAGA puts Trump in a position where he is able to go against Harris as the head of the Republican Party. So overall, full points for brainwashing technique. MAGA didn't invent the technique, but it certainly uses them to their advantage. Trump always uses the situation to his advantage. All right, so what's the final score? Drum roll, drum roll. I'm doing a drum roll. MAGA is a 5 goat head cult. 5 goat heads out of 5. Honestly, they should get extra points for the quality of the followers, and I should add a category for their ability to translate ideological passion into political power. Really well done. MAGA brought Trump to the head of the greatest nation to ever exist, ever. Rome, Egypt, even Atlantis pale in comparison to the United States. Trump dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. Jim Jones could never even fathom that kind of power. People compare Trump to Hitler, but the nuclear arsenal that Trump had at his disposal is something Hitler could only have ever dreamt of. The proof is in the pudding, and MAGA is a winning cult. Anyone who says otherwise is just coping. Now, I am not personally MAGA, but you have to give credit where credit is due. 5 goat heads. 5. Some of you say, I never give 5 goat heads, but here it is. You can think about that on election night. Get some good food on election night, too. You don't want to be sad and hungry because that's too much. General Kelly, he said that Trump often praised Hitler. That is disgusting. But you know what is not disgusting? This Hitler did some good things, spinach dip. You'll think back to the 2024 election and all you remember is the tears and this delicious spinach dip. I should link a recipe, but that's tacky. So for non-Christian cults, we do not do a Christometer, even though Trump is selling Bibles made in China, whatever. As far as I know, he has not claimed to be the Messiah, as far as I know. But we do a binary scale, which is MAGA better or worse than the standard American culture? What is it? Drum roll. It is the same. That was a trick question. MAGA is standard American culture. Where do you think these people come from? Where do you think they come from? We see this fake version of America in movies and on TV, and that fake version only reflects the values of the coastal elite, the super educated. And these are the enemies of Trump and MAGA. So we think America is one thing, but it is actually a lot of those things. And one strong, very strong current is MAGA. And MAGA is ultimately optimistic. You can't really say, I love America, but I hate MAGA, because that's what America is. And you got to look at it. Look right at it. Accept it. So today, I did not go into some of the other cults that are working under Trump. Hassan notes the new Apostolic Reformation and Opus Dei. Both of these are Christian nationalists. I just want to mention that because MAGA is an umbrella for a lot of other stuff. The right is so well organized. Never, ever doubt their ability to accomplish massive victories. If you want to learn either about the new Apostolic Reformation or Opus Dei, I am linking videos at the bottom. Okay, so I will see you next time for the woke mind virus. It's what keeps MAGA up at night. Thank you so much. Like, share, and subscribe.